Hey everybody, this is Isaiah Houston, co-founder of Ground Game, a YouTube channel for duelists by duelists, here to show off my top 32 regional Earth Machine deck profile, and I'm here with my teammate.
Elias, hello, hello.
Okay, so we have someone who actually inspired me to play the deck. He's got a few credentials. What have you done so far with Earth Machines?
The first thing was top 32 remote YCS, and then after that I had third place regional top, and then the next following weekend I got a first place regional win. That's it so far.
That's pretty good. Earth Machine is actually pretty rogue, so like why pilot this deck over any of the decks just in general?
Well, I've been strictly playing this deck for a little over a year now, and it has a certain element to the deck that I really like. I really loved playing Spirals back in the day and Orcust, and I love how those decks, they had main deck boss monsters. I love how the same cards that you utilize for your going first combo, they're also really good going second. So in my opinion, that's like a recipe for quote unquote the best deck or a really, really good deck. So yeah, so like just how before you had Spiral Tough and Spiral Super Agent, where going second you're able to pop cards, bait cards, and then still go into double helix. This deck has Gear Frame, and it has Fortress, Citadel, it has like the trains, which you could use going second to crack a board and then still establish your own board. And then going first, those same cards are like, they contribute to your main combo. So that's the main reason why I've been sticking with this deck and why I think it's a solid rogue deck strategy.
That's interesting because here at Ground Game, like we want to empower players not to just like jump onto the bandwagon of like the meta decks or the decks that top, but to actually gain useful skills as players that lets them pilot any deck to success. So you're definitely embodying a lot of what we stand for here at Ground Game. And let's just go through a deck that I had somewhat success with. I went X2-1 at the regionals with about 500 players. I definitely feel like I could have done a lot better. It's definitely a pretty tough deck to play. I think I definitely made some few mistakes that, because it's my first time playing the deck in the tournament level. Like I haven't even tested out of locals, and I got I think 30. Actually, probably one of the most fun decks I've played in the format, and it's definitely a skillful deck.
Yeah, it's definitely a skillful deck. It's also it's less forgiving than other decks, right? So like other decks, like Sword Soul, for example, or like super crazy combo deck, you could mess up on your combo, but you could still scythe your opponent, right? And that could get you there. This deck is like the only thing you could fall back on is a Floodgate. But if you don't have a Floodgate and you mess up your combo, you're probably going to lose the game. So yeah, it does require a little bit of skill in knowing your combos.
Yes, a lot of the choices for this deck, one of the reasons why I wanted to play it was because I realized in testing that the Floodgates were actually so strong against the current meta, especially we saw the trend of the Punk Adventure deck really rising in popularity. So I chose to max out on the 3 Rivalry and the 3 Gozen. I knew that they all wouldn't be like super impactful in every single matchup, but I knew at the high level I had 3 goals in for Sword Soul and then 6 cards for the Punk Adventure deck. So, and it turned out pretty well. Like a lot of the times that I played, I know you even see me walk by, like my opponent would get very greedy. They'd go right and then they chain Griffin and I chain Rivalry of the Warlords and they don't get to summon the token or get the Faithful Adventure out. And then a lot of times you just need like one turn with this deck to snowball. So let's get into the card by card. I played 3 heavy forward and 3 redeployments. So those like I think it's the best 2 cards in the deck, no? Like the spell cards.
Well, yeah, they're your 1 to 1.5 card starters going first. So heavy forward obviously can get you to your main like harvester line, which is really good. But it also has the added utility of like if you already have a starter, you're kind of telling your opponent like, do you have a response? And if they do, it kind of works in your favor because they're down a card, and then your heavy forward can get to your dozer.
So deployment, I think deployment's insane, especially pitching a Machina card. You're also able to add overdrive. And I know your remote YCS list was pre-Regulus, but I see you chose to play 2 heavy forward. Would you like ever go back to that? Do you think like 3 is pretty standard?
It's weird. Post Regulus, you really do need to see a normal summon, because if you don't, you're playing with another dead card in your hand. But before Regulus, I was playing more like nitty and gritty. So like even if I didn't open up a heavy forward or like a starter, like I'll have a lot of traps to sit on. I have a lot of things that I could fall back on. But now that I'm including, Regulus and a few other cards, you do need to see a normal summon. So I think I would stay with the 3 heavy forward. But back then it was like you still have like really high chance of like seeing a normal summon because you're playing 3 gear frame, you're still playing 2 harvester, and you are still playing 2 heavy forward. So it's like 7 cards besides redeployment going first. So that's still a good number.
Yeah, I really like Heavy Forward and Deployment because they're very good cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! In a sense that they act as starters slash extenders, and not a lot of cards have that duality. So if you have a card in your deck that has that duality, that's a really good card. I
Hmm.
think the only other card that beats that is like the trifecta, right? It becomes a starter, becomes an extender, and a disruption, and that card is Emergency Teleport. But
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it, though, Deployment actually fits that trifecta too because you can add the trap card depending on what you actually discard.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's
So
like
that's actually insane.
there's many routes to the cards. That's another thing that I really love. And like Cyber Dragon, right? You special summon Cyber Dragon. You could use it for as a combo card, or you could enter battle phase, run over a card. I like how redeployment combo tree for redeployment going first or going second is huge. Like there's so many things you could do before you start comboing.
And then the Machinas. So we played 3 Gear Frame. We play 1 Unclassed Bar, 1 Fortress, 1 Citadel, 1 Ruin Force. Those are like, you would never tinker with those ratios there.
The only one I would consider bumping up is Fortress, mainly because, again, it's a very, very good card going second. And going first, there are some hands it could actually like help you combo. Like let's say redeployment gets negated and you open up the fortress. There's a lot of 2-card combinations to 3-card combinations that could still let you do full combo. Fortress is a card that my other partner Henry Furchow, he's been playing at 2 and he's had a lot of success with. But I think for now I'm gonna stick to 1.
And then I think the next cards I played was the 2, well, it was like 1 Duracrane and 1 Bullet Train. Those was like the 2 train cards. How'd you feel about those cards? Because I wasn't in love with them. They like worked when they worked, but like I can't cut them. I just can't see myself cutting them just because going for Libel and having that access is so strong. But there were cards that I never wanted to open. I always wanted to like search or summon off of urgent schedule.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a bit weird. I definitely don't think they're cuttable, and I definitely don't think you can play more of them. I think 1-in-1 is just the sweet spot because they're hard OPT to summon. It's 2 more cards in your deck that require you to already have a normal summon to be live. So that could be the tricky part, right? So like if you don't have a normal summon, you have a dead card in your hand, or potentially 2. In the long run, they're just too good. Like they help you get to your rank 10 plays. They're both like unique in their own way, right? So like Bullet Train, you every single turn you could always add back a machine from your graveyard back to your hand. So that's like really good for the grind game, although it doesn't really like, help you end on a negate or anything. The fact that it gives you recursion is huge. Turn you get a machine back from your graveyard on your turn and on your opponent's turn, and then like during your turn you could potentially reborn it. The Derek Crane making your Dora basically a better Trident because even if your Dora gets negated, you still have a pop. I think that's just huge. Also, the ability to chain block your summon. So, like, you can play around Ash. I saw you do it where you summon Dozer, and then you chain link 1 Dozer, chain link 2 Derek Crane. You're playing around Ash Blossom. So that, like, Derek Crane is a really, really good extender. It does have the drawback of if you don't have a opening play, it can be a brick.
Yeah, Derek Crane was really nice. There was
Yeah.
a lot of times people drop Listadora, and like you can still retype any time just
Exactly.
to pop a card, you know. So that's like really strong.
Yeah, so I think 1-in-1 is the sweet spot.
And then for the Infinitrack cards, 2 Harvester, 1 Dozer, 1 Trencher, 1 Tunneler. Now, I think the 2 Harvester just makes sense, right? With the gear frames, and every other note. Sometimes if you have the unfortunate time to open up like an unclassed bar, like you just don't want to clash with too many normal summons. There's a few 2-card combos, right? Where if you draw like gear frame and then the harvester where you can still like summon both and get to both engines. So I think 2 is fine. But something you did convince me to play was just the 1 brutal dozer. I was playing 2 at first. Do you ever see yourself bumping that card up or?
So it's weird because before the gear frame build, you would play Metal Cruncher and you would have to play more than 1 dozer because if you don't get to dozer, you literally don't have a play. Increasing the number of dozers or trenchers or tunnelers, it's kind of like, even though the dozer is amazing, right? Like if you resolve dozer, you can get to your river storm and start playing the game. The thing is, if you do increase the number on dozer, although it's a very good card, you're going to open more dozer, which means that you're going to be opening up your utility cards less. You're going to be opening up a normal summon less. I don't want that. I'd rather open heavy forward than open dozer, right? I'd rather open a spell card that can get me into harvester, trencher, tunneler, and dozer rather than opening up dozer. This has been like the sweet spot, and your combo gets to the card, so that's much better than hard opening it, because if you're hard opening it, you're kind of relying on the rest of your hand to be decent or okay for it to go through. I've seen people play 2 or play 3. It's definitely not bad if you finish your list and then you're deciding on which cards to cut for, because you still have to fit Floodgates, you still have to fit Droplets. In my opinion, I think is mandatory, or like a hand trap. It's the only card that's like realistically cuttable.
That makes sense. Now, I think the most insane cards were, for me at least, were the Ruin Force and then the Trencher and the Tunneler. And I'll explain why. The Ruin Force, obviously, because like he's just a tank, right? 4600 attack.
Yeah.
You can not OPT to summon. During the battle phase, you can negate the activation of anything, right? Even the damage step, and it just halves life. So like every time I summon that card, I just went for game. I
Yeah.
had game that turn. And then the reason why I say Trencher and Tunneler is really insane, because like they're not cards you want to open, but like just having there's a lot of times where I just urgent schedule, and depending like if I floodgate them, I could just urgent schedule, and then on end phase summon the Trencher, summon the Harvester. I didn't care if they got Draco back at the end phase because I was going for game.
Yeah.
Then I can make like a Ballista, or I can make a Anger Knuckle, or even a Genius, and then just I'd be
Full
able
combo.
to summon back the Harvester get Dozer, and I just had so much advantage from just that play right there. And then obviously Tunneler, because he's your pot of avarice. Like he just puts everything back and he just draws you into two like likely utility cards after you already send your deck.
I personally don't want to open up Tunneler ever, but Trencher is not bad. Like if you have a way to Harvester and you open up Trencher, you could play through a lot of negates and like bringing back your Harvester after you use the search effect and then using Harvester's modulation effect. I feel like that comes up like almost every game, or like 2 out of the 3 games in a match. But yeah, Ruin Force.
Modulation effect is crazy. Like I made just turn 1 Zeus's. People are like,
yeah.
shocked at me turn 1 Zeus's.
What's great is that you bait a negate, or you bait a disruption. So like your plan might not even be to go into Zeus, but like summoning Harvester, summoning Bullet Train, effect to make them both level 12. Your opponent is like shit. Like he can go into Zeus, and then they try to pop your cards or whatever. You could force something out, even if your plan is not to go into Zeus. But what you said about Ruin Force, like the thing about Ruin Force and like just the Machina cards, like people are scything you right now, and like you don't care. Like the fact that you have these cards in your deck, you don't care if your opponent jump through hoops to eventually scythe you. You're just gonna get to Ruin Force and just attack for game. Like that happens very often. Also
in testing.
Yeah.
No, in testing, I OTK'd my opponent under Calamity as well. He had the nib that ended my life, but I had game on board had I went into battle phase.
Yeah. You see, like
under Calamities.
You get like, not, I don't want to say cheesy wins, but like you have alternative win conditions. You're not relying on your Dora, Libe. You're not relying on your extra deck to win. There are a lot of games that you win just like playing simple, like summoning Fortress, and the fact that Ruin Force and Fortress are they're inherent summons. It's like your opponent always has to pick it up, read it. They're like, wait, it's not an effect, or like they try to call by it or something, right? And then like they realize it's too late. And once you get the card out, you're essentially putting a 4600 beat stick. It's relevant. It's for sure relevant. Also, Patrick Hoban, he used to talk about like, I forgot what deck it was, but they played a card, Leo something, the Sacred Tree. It had like 3200 attack, and it was the biggest monster in the format. So he basically said that whatever deck could play the biggest monster in the format, it has an inherent deck advantage over their opponents, quote unquote. So that's like one inherent deck advantage I have over my opponents. Like, although my opponents can go access code, right, and it could be bigger than 4600, they have to jump through hoops. Like they have to be able to fully combo, go access code to get a big beater. My deck, like it can put a 4600 beat stick with ease. Like, I don't have to do anything. I just summon Gear Frame, switch on Cluspar, dump on effective on Cluspar, dump Ruin Force, and then like get a few monsters in the grave, and then I could easily summon Ruin Force. So I think that's a huge part of the deck, and I definitely don't think it's cuttable.
All right. The card everybody's gonna ask about, Ancient Gearbox. What do you do if you open the card?
All right. It's not ideal. Of course it's not. Look, every deck has to play. I feel like every deck plays an engine requirement. If we're honest, other decks in the format, or other decks that performed really well, they end up playing like 3 to 4 engine requirements. We've seen like Gensikron, Mare, like this and that, like the Draco back. Like a lot of people play engine requirements, right? Unfortunately, this is the one that we have to play. The good part is that like going first, if you drop box and like heavy forward or like Harvester, you could still do the same exact combo as you would normally do. And draw 2 cards. The fact that you could do that is pretty nice. Also, like going second if you drop box. There are duels where it's not like you auto lose, right? It's not like you can't do anything. Like there are duels where you could like, if you have box and urgent schedule, like you could still do something. Go into Geargan X, and if you have another level 4 in your graveyard, you could like detach box and then target box, add it back to your hand, and then resolve box. So you could do like cool plays like that, but obviously it's a brick. Obviously, you don't want to open it. Another thing that I do, I know a lot of other machine players don't do this, but I do this every single time I play against combo. I always, it's like a rule that I side out box and tunneler going second. So the theory behind that is that if you're playing against like an extreme combo deck, right, and they're gonna set up like a bunch of negates, if I open up box and tunneler, those are two cards in my deck that I just can't afford to open up because they don't help me break a board going second. By having those cards in my deck, it's like a little win more, right? Like you're gonna have to break their board, and then you're gonna have to eventually get to your box, get to your tunneler, and then draw two cards. It's like the chances of you getting to that point are less because you are playing box and tunneler because you can't afford to draw those cards. So yeah, that's kind of like the theory behind that. But if you're going against control or like a mid-range deck, you keep them in your deck.
So that's interesting. Like in my time playing it, I didn't like open box. Like you said, there's a lot of times you can still get through the combo lines.
Mhm.
You just rather not see it or have to go through it.
Of
But
course, of course.
it's not a total brick. I think the last monster I played was Regulus. Yeah,
I
so
only played
I prefer to play one Regulus because it was a card that you could search on demand with a River Stormer,
Yep.
and it's not a card I wanted to open. It's another high level monster that like really just served the purpose as either a flimsy Omni Negate to like
Mhm.
how to protect your combo or extend. So I think the best part about it is that it's an 8, so you can make 10 with Harvester. I
Exactly.
actually did that a few times during the tournament.
Yeah,
Is there anything notable else about like Regulus? Obviously, the play where you could just summon it with attaching the gear frame special to gear frame is just like free bodies from there.
mhm.
But
It's rough because before Regulus came out and people were testing with it, everyone was thinking like, "Oh, this card is gonna break the deck. This card, like, you need to play 3 of it." Um, but the truth is, after heavy, freaking vigorous freaking testing, you kind of have to think of the card as another train. Just how Bullet and Derek Crane are, that they're only live when you have a normal summon or you're kind of playing the game. Regulus is the same exact way. So again, it's a hard OPT to summon, right? So you kind of have to. It's an extender. It's an extender that could also potentially be a soft negate. I think the best thing about the card is that it's a level 8, which exactly what you said, that Harvester can target it to make it level 10. So it opens up a few combo trees actually. Like Harvester now or your heavy forward is a 1 card rank 10. You go by like you bypass the draw 2 combo, but you can end on a rank 10, right? So like if you already open, let's say Rivalry and like Droplet or Gozen or any of your floodgates, there's kind of no point to go for the draw 2 combo because you already have your basic disruptions. What are you trying to draw into? Like if you draw into like another gear frame or you draw into like another harvester, it's not going to do anything for you, right? So you could bypass all of that and just since you already have the floodgate, you could just for sure end on a rank 10. So that's pretty cool. Like the fact that your 1 card becomes a rank 10 now, it opens up new combos with redeployment, right? To do you could end on Regulus plus a rank 10 stuff like that. But I don't think this card puts the deck over the top at all, like as other people say. It does. It's just like it's another card that can brick you, sadly, and it's another card that requires you to already be playing the game. The max I see playing this card is at 2. Definitely not more. It basically makes your bad hands worse, and it makes your all right hands better, and it makes your really good hands, even better. So I want cards that make my bad hands better, and this is not the card that makes my bad hands better because if I normal summon Harvester, it gets negated, and then the best thing I could do is go Goliath, summon Regulus, attach Harvester. I doubt that's going to get me there.
for the final cards that I played personally was I played the 3 urgent schedule.
Yeah.
I think urgent schedule. I didn't use this effect all day for the um, ability when I'm going first
hmm
to send it to the graveyard, add a 10 and then summon a 10. And I think just because like you have to have Anger Knuckle already in the graveyard for that, and you can't really link with Anger Knuckle. So it was pretty like good urgent schedule. Like even if I didn't draw a monster, like urgent schedule is a card that you just must ash. Or like if I'm going second, like
Yeah.
urgent schedule is just so like powerful that they have to negate it. I like that this card, this deck too. While it does play like a fair amount of cards you don't want to draw, like It just has so many cards on the other hand that you just must negate, right? Like you have
Hmm.
Yearframe, you have Harvester, you have Dozer, you have every spell. Like all of these cards are like cards that your opponent must interact with, and Urgent Schedule is just another one.
So like you're going second, you could have like urgent schedule and redeployment, and that's crazy, right? Like they kind of have to disrupt both the cards because even if one of them slips by, you could OTK or you could break their whole board. Urgent schedule, I am so oh my god, this the amount of arguments I've had because of this card is crazy. I think of this card. If I could play 4 urgent schedules, I'd probably play 4. If you sit down against your opponent, right, like round 1, I always say this, and you roll the dice, it's a 50% chance you're gonna go first, 50% chance you're gonna go second, right? Having a card in your deck that's a bomb card or a 1 card full combo, a 1 card that lets you pick up your whole deck, like look through your deck and put any monster you want on the board, like putting Fortress on the board, putting Citadel on the board, is just so huge. Like it's a mini E-Telly, it's a mini scapegoat. It's a card that you always want, like going second, right? Like I said, which is 50% of the time going into game 1, and then past turn 1, past turn 0, it's a card that you always want. So you always want it on your turn 3, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. It doesn't matter. So a card like that, I cannot see myself putting at less than 3. It's a bomb card. And then like even going first, I personally like use it a lot just because like you could use your River Stormer to tribute your Anger Knuckle. You use Anger Knuckle's effect to reborn itself, right? And then you make your River Stormer into another Goliath, and then that way you search another level 10. Like I actually do that play pretty often. Going second, like even if you draw like 2 urgent schedules and droplets, that's still really good. You could set urgent and then droplet your opponent, and then send the set urgent, searching another level 10. It's also another like consistency card, so you could open like no way to combo whatsoever, but you could set urgent, set rivalry, right, and then pass, and then that could get you there. That's another card that could get you into your engine. Yeah, so I think this card is it's for sure the best card in the deck by miles. I think this card is right over Mija power level.
All right, end the video there. No, I wouldn't go that far, but like the card is very, very strong in the sense that the card it doesn't restrict you. Like
Yeah,
if you think a card that powerful, you're locked into machine. Like it doesn't say that. Like you can
yeah,
only like it doesn't have those restrictions. The only thing it says you can't attack with anything but machines.
yeah.
I mean
Whoa.
that's cool because like going and just playing machines, right? I definitely think the card is really good. And so the other card I chose to play as a spell was the 3 droplets. Like
Mhm.
you said, it's a mandatory card. It's like just a powerful card. It's a card that I always normally side out going first. It's
Same
a
here.
really good card going second to just deal with boards, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the reasons why I played Impermanence, because the way I was looking at like hand traps or the format in general is you either play 10 plus hand traps or you play like board breakers like Dark Ruler evenly. I mean Dark Ruler droplets in your deck.
Yeah.
And the way the format is, you're gonna get scythe, and like likely one hand trap is not enough. So if you're not playing an adequate amount, then that doesn't like suit you in the long run.
Yeah, you're probably
If,
playing with one less card.
if I can draw urgent schedule imperm or something, maybe I can bait a negate and then resolve something and try to OTK at the scythe. If I imperm, if they have one on negate, they'll probably negate it, and then I'll go urgent schedule. I just like wanted to hold imperm and obviously like droplets for my turn. Well, even going second against the punk adventure deck, whether like droplets imperm, like I can stop the scythe play. Whether like droplets rivalry, I can kind of like deal with the board or deal with the omni in a fashion that lets me just resolve rivalry and or goes in and win the game, like get back into the game. And I think just moving forward though, just because of how like game 2 and 3 are, I think we talked about actually like maybe cutting the Emperors for something like Ogre or something, right?
That's the next idea.
It's worth testing. Like Ogre obviously contradicts the idea that it's a card that you don't want to necessarily use it on your opponent's turn. Because it likely not going to stop them. But if you can hold it for their turn, you can hit Formula Synchron, you can hit
Exactly. Yeah.
TG Wonder and try to stop the scythe play. And it's just another card that they have to
Mhm.
negate.
In my opinion, it's also another card that contributes to like the deck strategy, right? So like your strategy is you set up your first turn board and then you kind of just hope to survive, and then turn 3 you have all the tools you need to OTK or like swing the game into your favor. So like Ghost Ogre could be a card that could stop your opponent from OTKing you. because it deals with like a body.
They remove bodies. I maxed out on Rivalry Gozen, so like I played against a few Sorto players at the regional, and Gozen was very, very good. Once you floodgate them and they pass back to you, you have all the tools to OTK them, and now you don't have to worry about nib.
Exactly.
That's really strong. And then the card, I think you cut recently now, was the Overdrive. I didn't really know what to put in. I didn't want to play like a card that doesn't like fit with the strategy. I liked Overdrive for its like resource game, and then just being able to trigger Citadel instead of like summon or just summon Citadel. So I think it was fine. But
Yeah, look, I think the card is amazing. I mean, even all the regionals that it did well in, and even in the remote YCS, I played. I think the card is very good. It's just that like now that Regulus is out, I just cards like Regulus and the trains, you kind of already have to like play, or you need to see a normal summon. Overdrive kind of fits in that category. It's a card that you definitely don't want to see going second, but going first, it does require you to see a normal summon. I don't know, I think it was like tipping the scales a little too much for us. Like, if you don't see a normal summon, it's another card that makes your bad hands worse.
I wouldn't mind cutting that, but I want to cut it for a consistency piece. Maybe trying out a prosperity or something, like just add more consistency to the deck.
Yeah, so that's actually the card that we've been testing, prosperity, for another.
And the side deck is not nothing crazy. And the best card of my side deck was Gamma, because 3 deployment, heavy forward even, and then the urgent schedule are just cards like your opponent must ash. I respond with Ash Blossom, and then like Gamma itself is just so strong because it puts 2 extra bodies on board. It lets those cards resolve. You're not locked, obviously, with urgent schedule, so it's just really insane. If I can put it in the main, I would, but it's just like you play so many cards you don't want to draw, and you just don't want to add driver to that equation.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, the one card I actually forgot to mention the main deck was the Offering to the Doomed. It's a card that, so like we wanted always one mine out. I didn't want to play like the Duster. I wanted a card that was like gave me duality first or second. And that card, it was good also too because you can combo with it. Like you can pop your Ruin Force, special summon like 3 back from the banish pile, or you can like pop a card in your field and like summon Citadel and go for game. I think one of the best plays I like in this deck is just like Fortress Crash, chanting 1, Citadel, chanting 2 Fortress, and it's like, dang, what is Floor doing to that?
Yeah. I mean, you would have to chain like 1 fortress, but yeah, you could crack a whole board, without even using your normal summon.
But I think moving forward, I don't think I will play the Offering. I mean, it's a card too. That way, I was thinking about it. It's another card that I can draw for 6 into the Hulk board. Like, it's just insane. Like what a quick play pop can do, right?
Yep.
Any phase of the game. The draw phase thing. That I guess the idea is like if you resolve full combo, you don't really care about the draw phase.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because everything engrave, everything recursive with Bullet Train. Is Offering to Doom a card like you would play moving forward? How do you feel about it?
Well, I used to side it. I think it's very good, like exactly for the reasons that you mentioned. But as of right now, I'm not playing it. I'll have to see. I'll have to test it more with Regulus. And I feel like Regulus switches the main deck up a little bit. But for utility cards, I'm just testing different things. So Offerings of the Doom was really good for me. But now I'm testing more like Torrential Tribute and just a few other cards. For people who don't have droplets, I think it's a very good choice. There's a lot of players that play this deck, and then they ask me like, "Yo, Elias, like I don't have droplets. What should I play instead?" The easy answer is to say Chalice, right? Like you can't, like everyone says that, like, "Oh, you don't have droplets, play Chalice," but it's not the same at all. Like you cannot. I feel like you cannot compare Chalice and droplets. Droplets does a little too much. It's also like unbricks your hands and stuff. I think if you don't have droplets, you can play Offerings of the Doom. Maybe not at 3. Maybe play at like 2 or 1.
Yeah, I just wanted to mine out. You can.
Yeah, it's also mine now, which is beautiful. Yeah.
You can pop. You can get to 1 monster pop, and then obviously like out the mine that way. That's also another reason why I played the 2 Dark Hole in my side deck. It was actually really clutch. One game I sided in against Sword, so cleared the whole board. I definitely want to bump Droll to 3. Not necessarily like because it stops Scythe, just because there are like rogue decks out there like Gytrons and other decks like that just like you don't see 5 times like as like you might see like Punk and Sword and Despia, but you just want to respect those decks that like Droll just like are really good against like dragons and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a deck that I really respect. I respect Flunder because I have to, not because I want to, and then Dragon Link. So Dragon Link, now it's a little easier. The matchup is a little easier, which is because they're playing the adventure cards. So like the Floodgates are often they're live a little more. But Like if you're playing against pure Dragon Link, that was like the hardest matchup. Like you're having 6 cards in your main deck that are essentially dead. But now, since they're playing the adventure card, it can be a little better. That's a matchup that I really want to respect. I play 3 Droll. Also, like Drytron, the fact that they just skip your turn now is pretty crazy. Or like I don't know that I just feel like that deck is
You should make your battle phase, right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
skips the main
It
phase,
skips
which means
the
you
main
skip your battle
phase.
phase pretty much.
Exactly, yeah. I think that deck is really, really good. That's another reason why I play 3 Droll. I want another card for Flunder. Most of my losses in events have been to Flunder, so that's a card that I'm definitely not moving out of my side deck now.
I definitely think you should try like the Gamma too. It's pretty like good. I even went as far as to play the Omega with it, but I ran into a lot of Zombie World players, and I just think Phoenix. I'm just gonna put back into the deck. Dark Hole also doubles down as like a mine out, and then that was pretty good along with Twin. Deep Berry at 2 in my side. I actually loved it. I don't know how you feel about that. We're in a format where Punk Adventure is like strong, but like games 2 and 3, you want to keep some Floodgates in, but you want some chainables, and Deep Berry is just another card that like lowers the ceiling of their deck, even against Punch Adventure. Like if you call Synchro, it's like okay, links only I have to deal with, for the most part. I definitely wouldn't play 3D barrier, but like having 2 in there is pretty good.
Yeah, that's been the sweet spot.
And then evenly. I didn't side evenly all day. In this deck, maybe I'll cut it and try some more things, like go up on a Droll. Like I want to maybe instead of Twin, just try Cosmic or Foolish Return or something like that. Just try the things.
I think evenly is just really good right now for mainly because Despia and some other decks they put up Zombie World. Also, you don't mind seeing multiple evenlies, which is cool. I like having a card that could potentially out my opponent's board and out the Zombie World. So it's like another Zombie World out. It has multiple uses, right? So you can put it in against like a full trap deck or like Flunderies. You could evenly them, and then they still keep the trap card, which is unfortunate, but like at least you could deal with the field spell and the one of their monsters that they have on the.
Yeah, and I like this deck in the sense that it's a Swiss toolbox kind of deck. Like your win cons are actually in your main deck. Like your extra deck cards are not really like your win cons a lot unless you go for the train cards. So everything else is pretty much like utility. So you have a lot of one-ups. So you have the Gear Guy NX for the combo, River Stormer, Searcher, Earth Slicer, Gustav Max for game, Dora for defense, Libo for game, Zeus, Freak Elia for the combo, Platinum Gadget, utility for the combo, Ballista, really good card. YuGiOh players gotta read. Bias and through play testing, it's like Ballista is not just a card that you want to summon going first. Going second, it can make stuff 0. I actually made an Appaloosa 0 one time. Anger Knuckle card you always want to end on, and then a really good card that I like is the Genius because it just negates stuff. I negated a Fateful Adventure one time.
That card is crazy. I think that card is insane. It's really good against decks that put up Appaloosa or like Tri-Brigade players. If you ever catch them, right? Like this card was huge back then because you could just urgent schedule, summon Genius, and then you could Genius target your own heavy forward or your own switch yard or anything. You could shut off the Appaloosa, and they can't revolt to Shurag banish it.
Yeah, they can't revolt and they can't negate it with Appaloosa, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it plays around Appaloosa and it plays again around Shurag.
That's the deck profile. It's pretty fun. Comment down below if you have any questions or like join the Discord community. Talk about Earth Machines with Elias and myself. Of any feedback, we'll answer those questions. Also, we just want to give a look ahead just to see like what do we think about the deck moving forward for this national season and moving forward into the rest of the year. So how do you feel about this deck moving into a national season when we're seeing like the best 2 decks are looking like Sword Soul and Punk Adventure for the nationals?
Personally, I mean, I'm definitely going to play this deck for Nationals. There's no way I'm not. It's the deck that I'm most comfortable with. Punk Therion, I hope I go to Nationals and I play against 10 Punk Therions. I really do.
I think Punk Adventure.
Punk Adventure, I'm sorry. Yeah. Punk Adventure. Yeah, like I think that's a favorable matchup. Sword Soul, it's a hit or miss. It depends how many hand traps they open, right? Or like, well, Floodgates. If I open Rivalry, obviously that's not that great. But I think it's going to be a solid pick, especially because, like, I know what to do with the deck. So I think if you're playing Rogue, I don't think it's a bad call. If you pick up the deck, you learn a few combos, right? You learn how to side with the deck. I think it'll be a pretty good Rogue call.
I agree. Like, if you just play like 10 Punk Adventure decks, I feel like you should top, right?
Yeah.
Just
I,
because
I'm
like rivalry and goals are just so impactful against those decks going first or second.
Exactly, yeah, and I just don't care about like getting scythe, them putting up a negate or two. I feel like I don't know. It's just it feels a little too easy. If that sounds cocky, I'm sorry, but like it is what it is.
The last thing I wanted to talk about was a card that's coming out this year that I'm very excited about for the deck.
Oh
It's
yeah.
coming out in Animation Chronicles, and it's called Clockwork Night.
Oh, that card is
And, it,
crazy.
and it's a continuous spell card that states you can activate this card once per turn. You can only use the third effect of this card once per turn. It has three effects. All face-up monsters become machines. So it's a floodgate.
Yeah, that alone is crazy. For people that play
And
zombies or have played against the zombie deck, they put up this little lock with Zombie World and Rivalry, right? So like they force you into summoning zombies, which obviously no one's playing zombies, so you could do that soft lock now with just this card, which is an engine card, and Rivalry, which you are playing.
mhm. And then machine monster you control get 500 attack, and the machine monster your opponent controls lose 500 attack. So it's the Gaia power for you, and that minus your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's
And
relevant.
no, so like I think the craziest part about this card is the third effect that says you could banish this card from your graveyard, discard one card, add one Earth machine from your deck to your hand. And
Yeah,
I think that's insane. Um,
yeah.
so what do you say about this card? Is it a three of? Is it two
Mm,
of? Like it's a one
I
of?
I don't want to say it's a three of. It's definitely not a three of. I think it's going to be a solid two of. Um, just because if you see it, it's not bad, or like eventually if you draw into it, it's not bad. But you definitely don't want to play three. We probably will play Foolish Burial. I forgot what it's called. Um,
Foosbury and Goods. Like that's
exactly, yeah, Foolish Burial Goods. You could probably play like 2-in-1 ratio or something like that. So it's like three cards you could open that you can get to this card. Um,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
not
no,
bad to draw. Like so,
exactly. Yeah, it's not like again, this card, like if you draw it, you still need a way to get it to the graveyard, or you still need to have a play it, right? So, um, it's definitely
it's
not
a
a
card
three
you
of.
can send to the graveyard too off of Anger Knuckle.
Exactly. Yeah. So you could send Anger Knuckle to the grave by using River Stormer effect, and then you could Anger Knuckle send this card from your hand to the graveyard. It's a card that you probably want every single turn. I don't see why you wouldn't. But we would play Switchyard. So you would definitely play Switchyard. You would obviously play Droplets. So you would have um, 5 ways essentially to send it to the grave, 5 or 6 ways essentially to get it to the graveyard going second, and also like pitching it off redeployment. Like imagine redeployment pitching this card. That's just crazy. I feel like you're they need to negate redeployment because if they don't, you're gonna get to your full combo. And if they do,
And
you
you
have
need full combo
Clockwork Night.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And then if they do ash it, you're gonna Clockwork, pitch a card, and then search Harvester, summon Harvester, and then still combo. So they need to like, I don't know. This card is crazy. I feel like this card is just it's really really good, but I don't think it's a three of. Maybe it's a three of. It depends how
Yeah,
the
I
build
mean,
shapes up.
I do
But
wish there was another card that we could play that was really good with Foolisbury Goods, but I think like two and then like one is still fine. Like it depends
exactly, yeah. I
on how
think
to.
that's what it's. I think that's what it's looking like. But yeah, this card is definitely going to be played on this deck.
Yeah, I think it's definitely just too powerful not to play.
The fact that I think the boost to give your cards 500 and to give you reduce your opponent by 500, I think that's like actually relevant. Like making your gear frames, like just your gear frames, making them 2300. And then like imagine normal summing a gear frame which gets you to like so many other cards and it's a 2300 beat stick. I think that's just crazy. It's really good like when you're playing simple. Also, you're reducing your opponent's monster by 500, and the fact that like all their cards become machines, like um, I don't know. I feel like that stops certain decks. I know when people use Zombie World against me, I can't go into certain cards. I cannot go into Anger Knuckle. I can't go into Ballista, and that hinders me a lot. So also I can't go into some of my like my Geargan X. So I feel like that alone is gonna help the deck a lot, right? So like having an extra Floodgate, as well as it being a consistency card. Oh my god, I'm excited.
Yes, yes. And then like I guess have you looked into any of like the Splight cards or the Tira Element cards?
So I
Like,
know some Earth fairies are coming out. I haven't looked that much into it. I know they restrict you into simply like Earths or something. I'm not really sure. Um, I don't think I'll be playing those cards, mainly because they require you to pitch monsters, I think. Uh, but Splight, that's definitely a deck that we have to look forward to. We definitely need to be aware of it. We got to see how it's going to play out in TCG, and then I'm going to deck build according to it. I'm not going to change my deck because of the deck, because Splight comes out. The only time I did that was when we had Protos and Sword Soul, which I literally couldn't play the game. But other than that, we'll see. We'll see how Splight picks up here, what it's gonna do, what people are gonna be playing, and then we'll adjust.
all right, man. Um, Thanks for going over the profile with me and just giving some of your insight, man. All right.
No problem. Nice talking to you.
Stand your ground.